Good evening. Welcome to the Board of Selectmen's Tuesday, July 24th meeting. This meeting is being held using the webinar technology. I will begin the meeting by taking a roll call vote. I, Robin Hunter, am present.
Dave Haviland, present.
Cam Hudson, present.
So our first item of business is citizens' comments, and with the webinar technology, I want to remind people that if you do have a comment, if you look at the bottom of your screen, there's a little raise your hand. If you could click on that raise your hand, then we will allow you to speak and say your comment. So if you would do that now, we would appreciate it. Chris, you tell me if I've given people enough time.
Yeah, I think we're good. I don't see any hands.
Okay, all right. So this evening is a meeting that's really dedicated to the MBTA Communities Act. We are excited that the planning board will be presenting to us the draft zoning bylaws and giving us an update on the progress that they've made. What I would like to say before we begin and remind residents of Dover that the MBTA Communities Act is a law. It's a zoning law, and we as a town are required to comply with it. The planning board is really acting on behalf of the Board of Selectmen. They are the body that is responsible to pull this bylaw together. But I think it's important that all citizens understand that this is at the direction of the Board of Selectmen. You know, we as a board, when this law first came into play, like many other towns, evaluated the pros and cons and whether it was worth fighting this zoning requirement. But as 3 years have gone by, we realize that this is a zoning requirement. The Commonwealth of Massachusetts is very serious about implementing this law. If you don't pass it, there are immediate ramifications to loss of millions of dollars in grants accessibility, which would be a huge cost to the town of Dover. So I'm going to turn it over to the planning board, and Carol Lisbon, who's the chair. I hope you will introduce your newest member, your new town planner. Melissa, it's a pleasure having you at the meeting today. And I had the pleasure of working with you at my first planning board meeting as liaison 2 weeks ago. And I look forward to many years of learning about planning from you. So welcome to Dover.
Thank you.
Thank you, Robin, for that. And I will turn it over to Melissa and Jody, who is also vice chair of the planning board, and more importantly, our mother of the MBTA community.
Oh, God.
What about grandmother? Do you want to be grandmother?
No, I don't want to be mother either.
Is here tonight as well. So I think between the three of us, we should be able to answer any questions and go over in detail. I will introduce Melissa just to say this is her 10th working day here in Dover.
And she's still here.
It's still here. We've all been on good behavior. And
good job, Mike.
I will speak for Jody and the other planning board members and just say that it's hard to believe that it's only been 10 days. And I don't know where we'd be on moving ahead with the Everyday Communities Act without what Melissa has accomplished in those 10 days. And that's a lot of what she will talk about tonight, and we'll fill in some details as well as the conversation continues. So with that, it is my pleasure to introduce Melissa and ask her to just introduce herself to the folks on the meeting tonight, as well as to community members that might watch a replay of this meeting. So Melissa, take it away.
Thank you very much, Carol. And it is my pleasure to be here this evening at the Board of Selectmen meeting. 10 days, 10 very full days. Very excited to be on the scene here in Dover. I bring to the community a wealth of knowledge and with a variety of planning disciplines under my belt. I have about 25 years experience, and most recently as the Director of Planning and Community Development in the town of Braintree. So all kinds of experience from permitting to housing to conservation commission to historic preservation, community preservation. And also I volunteer locally on my zoning board of appeals, for which I've been a member for 23 years. So very involved in all things. People call me crazy, but very passionate about planning, not only as a profession, but as a volunteer locally, and just really looking to be a resource for the community of Dover. All hands on deck here. And I do have a PowerPoint to present, and I want to make it clear that this was perfected with the help from Carol and Jody as well. So really a group effort here, and been working as a team also with the Selectmen's office as well. So if you would allow me, I think I can share my screen.
Chris has the power.
Yeah, I think give it a shot.
Let's see here. Oops. Let me see. All right. And that should. Can everyone see the PowerPoint?
There we go.
Yes.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, amazing.
Right.
First good move. Okay. So, obviously just the front slide here, we're at the Board of Selectmen. I'm Melissa, and we're going to be moving along to slide number 2. And what we have here is a presentation and very quick outline of the zoning amendments that have been filed. These were filed with the Board of Selectmen on July 15th, and it included the draft bylaw, which you have all seen, which is new section 185-50, entitled By Right Multifamily Overlay District. And accompanying the text, we also have some maps that we will show later on in the presentation for the County Court, Tillsdale Road, multifamily overlay district. This slide here, we have a presentation of the area, as you can see on the map, highlighted in light blue. This has a further reference. We've been calling this County Court. As we continue through this process, we'll get a little more technical. It is Tisdale Drive. It's located on map 26. There's 56 parcels in total. I've combed the assessor records, and those 56 parcels are associated with each of the condominium units. So it gets a little broken down because of the form of ownership that we have here at County Court. And then the area that we're talking about is 9.957 acres. And that was taken directly out of the compliance model that the town and the consultant have been using to populate with various dimensional information, which has helped us arrive at determining that County Court is in fact eligible and will meet Dover's requirement to have zoning in place for 102 housing units.
Right, and Carol and Jody, I don't know if you want to just quickly remind the town of Dover how we arrived at this location, because it was quite a robust process.
Yep. Can everybody see my camera? I can't tell
Yeah.
if I'm on.
Yep, we
Yeah,
see
we
you.
can see you.
Yeah, we started this process obviously a few years ago, but very much in earnest, trying to engage the residents of Dover in the effort to locate one or more locations that we would consider as possible overlay district areas for the MBTA bylaw and the multifamily housing. So we started by identifying 5 locations in the town of Dover, and we used those with our consultant to run them through the state's compliance model. And using the model, we realized that 2 of them were not going to be compliant. So we kind of kicked them off the island. And we went to the residents of Dover with 3 options. One was the Meadows in the center of Dover. One was County Court, and one was the Junction Street location over by the middle school, high school complex. And we conducted a pretty significant outreach to residents of Dover through a survey, which was available, QR codes around town, Facebook, social media. Chris helped us really sort of try to blast it out to as many folks as we could. We used all the different social media and email channels that we could find, and we ended up with a pretty significant sample. This survey, by the way, was created and run by our consultant at Horsley Witten, which was our technical consultant for the MBTA work. And in that process, we heard very loud and clear, Carol, you might reinforce that the county court location was the favored location. Notably, we also asked residents of Dover to say, hey, like, what are we missing? Like, where else could we be looking? We didn't want to be in the business of just sort of like picking parcels, because that didn't feel right. We really wanted it to be a process where we engaged the community. And, we didn't get very significant feedback. We didn't get a lot of options. We had a few people be like, look at my neighbor's parcel. But we felt like that was probably not appropriate. So we stuck with the 5 originals, which got winnowed down to 3. And then the very resounding feedback from the residents of Dover was the county court location. Does that help, Robin, in terms of?
Yeah, I
how we
just
got to this
want to remind people, because I think this has been a very drawn out process, and
Yeah.
we're now coming down to the end. And I want to remind the town of all the work that has been done and
Yeah.
how we reached
Yeah.
the
This has been an
decision we have.
incredibly long process, and
Right.
it's really 2-pronged. That's the other really important thing to remember. We have to write a bylaw, and we have to pick a location for the overlay district. And those are 2 distinct processes. And we try to navigate a lot of people's different perceptions about, the rightness or wrongness of this law, this Massachusetts law. And as I've tried to articulate in our 3 public information sessions that we held in the spring of 2025, it's really not from the planning board's perspective whether we think the law is good or bad, or our reactions to it personally. It's really our perceptions and our actions on behalf of the planning board to do what the planning board is required by law to do, which is to bring a bylaw to the residents of Dover at a special town meeting, work with the Board of Selectmen to follow the law and to become compliant, assuming the residents of Dover vote to support the bylaw. So that's what we've been really trying to do. So a lot of residents have said, well, why should we support the bylaw? Or do we even want to, maybe we want to fight this bylaw? And we've always said, we've maintained as a planning board, look, right now, the Board of Selectmen has asked us to pursue a path forward towards compliance. And we're going to keep marching forward towards compliance until such time as somebody tells us to stop. And that would be, the law changing or the courts overriding something. At this point, that has not happened. And so our perspective is that in pursuit of compliance, we want to maintain access for the town of Dover to significant, like millions and millions of dollars of potential lost funding for initiatives and projects in Dover. And we want to write a bylaw that will be compliant as we need to be, but as protective as we can be for the town of Dover. And then we want to choose a location that will suffice to be compliant with this law. And that's, I think, what we've done. And we hope that the residents of Dover will agree and support this effort. I think you're on mute,
You're on
Robin.
mute. Robin.
Jody, could you possibly explain the nature of an overlay?
Yeah.
And because I think a lot of people might be confused by what that means.
Yeah. It's a great question. So an overlay district, and Melissa, pipe in because you're going to have better language than me, but an overlay district is essentially a geographic area with boundaries where the bylaw would apply. So essentially what it means is that underlying zoning that exists in that area still exists. It becomes sort of a second option from a development perspective. So right now at County Court, we have condominiums, and we have, some of them are 40B, and we have development in existence according to our existing zoning bylaw. Nothing about that changes. The overlay district literally is simply another option from a development perspective. You could theoretically put an overlay district in lots of different places, and owners of the property could choose to take advantage of the bylaw that exists for the overlay district, or just rely on the underlying zoning that already exists. Melissa, did I explain that well?
Perfectly.
Okay.
And could either of you also describe the difference between a 40B and this zoning exercise?
Yeah, that's a great question, and one we get asked a lot because people obviously have a lot of sensitivity about that. So the difference here is that the 40B regulations allow developers to come to Dover, select locations, apply for the 40B process, and essentially work around existing zoning restrictions in Dover. So our septic, our water, some of those regulatory components that exist in Dover, where we have a little bit more protection that might exist in other towns, developers can circumvent them through the 40B process. That is not the case with the MBTA bylaw. Essentially, what we're looking at here is establishment of an overlay district where multifamily housing could be available to a developer if they are able to meet Dover's development bylaws, like relating to septic systems, relating to access to water, etc. Melissa, what else would you add?
Setbacks.
No, that's
Setbacks
yeah,
is
we
a-
have a little bit about that in one of the other slides, but I think the main takeaway is that 40B, your local regulations are essentially out the door, and MBTA communities, we are the ones that have crafted the regulations and ordinances and bylaws
And the
that need to be
location,
filed.
and the location
Correct. Yep.
versus developer deciding to come in. She said it much more effectively than me. Out the door.
Yeah.
So Robin seems to have a little bit of an issue right now. So may I suggest we go on to the next slide?
Sure. This one is just a more detailed map showing the assessor parcels that will be included in the overlay district. This slide here is just a high level. You all received copies of the amendment that was filed with the Board of Selectmen. This is a high level review. The takeaways are multifamily housing is allowed by right, but still subject to site plan review. So that's still required to come to the planning board, still required to have a public hearing, and required to meet the thresholds and requirements and infrastructure regulations, et cetera, that are in place here in Dover. This section of the bylaw also includes some basic definitions that relate to the MBTA overlay. We also have a snapshot here of the dimensional criteria that will be required if you would like to pursue developing something in the overlay district. Again, honing in on the fact that they must meet these. This is not a situation where they can simply request waivers and say we're not going to meet those, which is what would happen in a 40B situation. We have no affordability housing requirements in this particular bylaw, and the parking spaces per unit is 2 to 2.5, so 2 per unit. And then the planning board also has jurisdiction over guest parking that could potentially raise the requirement up to 2.5 per unit. So some key points that we have here that we are going to continue to message and really ensure that the residents here in Dover are aware of. There has been several forms of litigation related to MBTA communities. All of the communities that have pursued any type of litigation have just failed, and they continue to fail. And they have actually been mandated with some very short and fast timelines that they need to comply, because these communities are already past their timeframes to comply with EOHLC. There is no mandate to build multifamily housing. We just need to create a zoning bylaw overlay district. So there is no plan that shows units. There is no forecasting of units. There is no phasing of anything. This is simply zoning that creates the overlay, at which time a developer or property owner may opt to exercise the rights in that overlay district.
I-
The grant, yes.
Melissa, I'm sorry if I may interrupt, because
Please.
this is probably the most important point. That
Okay.
nothing needs to be built under this new bylaw. It is a zoning bylaw. We have to create an overlay zone that allows denser housing, but it doesn't mean that one unit needs to be built. Whereas with a 40B, once it gets forced through and Dover has to take all of its bylaws and just park them, or would you say throw them out the window? Something
Something like that.
yeah.
Window, door.
But I think this is the singular fact that people mix up is they look at MBTA and think it's a 40B, and they are very, very different animals. And I just wanted to emphasize that. So thank you and keep going.
Yeah, that's a really good point and kind of leads to, so with a comprehensive permit 40B approval, that the next step is a building permit. With this zoning that we're putting in place, the next step is not a building permit. That you cannot build anything if this is passed at town meeting. You need to pursue the local process and obtain all the permits, Board of Health, DPW, Water, Planning Board, and then you may be eligible for a building permit if you're able to meet all those other local thresholds and bylaws. We've been talking and everyone's talking about the grant situation. You don't comply, you are essentially negated and not eligible for a variety of different grants. I know Member Hunter has done some public presentations related to that, and we will continue to talk about that. Some of the communities that recently failed had grant funds that they were using for matching federal funds, and they're gone. So this is something very real. That it's, early on people were saying, oh, it's a threat. It's not a threat. It's an actual reality. And there are communities in the Commonwealth that are facing some significant issues because they've signed contracts that include monies from these grant programs. So we will continue to talk about that, and we will look to the Board of Selectmen to provide us with that information. And we're going to be having that also in the executive summary. Again, as I had mentioned earlier, the proposed zoning bylaw overlay district does not require the inclusion of any affordable housing units. All of the units that will be constructed as part of any project that does come forward in the future will be market rate. And again, to the point that was raised earlier, unlike Chapter 40B, the MBTA Communities Act ensures that all Dover regulations, bylaws, and infrastructure requirements remain applicable and enforceable. And that's really another standout point, as mentioned by Member Hudson, that I think is important, that this is something that, yes, the state's saying you have to do it, but Dover is able to craft something that works locally if and when ever exercised.
And and I think as Dave Haviland pointed out, it's a very important distinction. There's a lot of confusion about this being an affordable housing bylaw, which it isn't. It actually restricts affordable housing to 10%. And also it is just a zoning bylaw. And the third point is the grants, taking away the grants is real. We're not being alarmist. It's just a reality. And not to mention the towns that have spent a lot of money on legal costs. So you have the additional costs of legal expenses if you decide to fight it. And I think there's also misinformation going around that the town needs to understand that every town that's out of compliance is not fighting the MBTA bylaw. You really have to read all of the instances. There are, certain towns are trying to negotiate fewer units because things changed in their town, or something happened, like with the case of Needham, their representative town meeting actually passed something that was more than what the MBTA Communities Act requires. So they had to go back to the town with something that just met the requirements of the MBTA Communities Act. So I think, there's a lot of nuances to everything. So it's not black and white. And, you can't say 35 communities are fighting that, because you really have to look at what's going on with each of those 35 communities. And I know we're going to address some of that in the executive session as well. I think the most important thing, my takeaway from this is it's a law. We are required as a town to abide by laws. We may not like the law, but it is a law, and it's very prescribed. And so we have to make sure that residents don't confuse this with 40B and with other issues. It's a zoning law that's a requirement for us to zone a section of town because we are an adjacent community, MBTA community.
And I would also add that for those citizens that are concerned about housing options in Dover, as we've heard as we went through the ADU bylaw in 2 town meetings over the last 3 years. That's why the Dover Housing Task Force has been created under the management of the Board of Selectmen. At the town meeting in 2023, funds were voted in order to hire a housing consultant to put together a master housing plan, not unlike what Wellesley just finished. And we have 3 proposals from consultants that we'll be looking at over the next couple of weeks and so forth to move ahead on that. But that is the vehicle in Dover to discuss the issue of housing, not this one.
Right.
This is just a law.
And it's a very prescribed law, and everything we have done is just following the law. The bylaws follow the law. Our council has looked them over. I believe the Commonwealth of Massachusetts has looked them over. Our overlay districts were extremely prescribed. It's very formulaic. We had to see which of the districts actually met all of the requirements. And our ultimate overlay district that we're going to present to the town, my understanding is, has been approved by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts as well. So we have done, and the planning board has really done their homework and made sure that when we go to town meeting, there are no loose ends. Everything will have been approved by the Commonwealth already. So the last item is for the town of Dover to approve this law.
Thank you, Robin. That's a great segue for Melissa to the next slide.
Thank you. Okay, so on this slide here, the next 2 slides actually is just kind of an outlay, and I call it task and timeline to the special town meeting. There's going to be a lot going on and a lot of different tasks, checks and balances, meetings, etc. And just starting with the most recent court case that I touched on earlier in June. This was 9 communities. And the case was dismissed. This is not an unfunded mandate, as noted by Chair Hunter. This is real, and we need to do our best to be in compliance, and that's really in the best interest of the town of Dover. The planning board, before I arrived, was very, very keen on getting some pre-adoption review from the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities. They did issue a response letter on June 27th. There were 3 main takeaways from that. The first comment was the bylaw now requires a special permit for materials removal, earth removal. There can be no special permit context whatsoever as part of an MBTA community's development. So they advised us to take a look at that, and I have done that. And I have some language that we're going to be talking to our consultant and legal counsel about that exempts these types of projects from that special permit. And we'll be looking at that in the site plan review instead. And then the second comment, which I'm going to call boilerplate because I've seen this in several communities, and they have cautioned the town of Dover that the site plan criteria cannot be applied whatsoever in any discretionary manner when we're reviewing these projects. So I think that's very clear to the planning board. I think it's clear to everybody that this is by right, and we cannot use that criteria to deny a project. We can ensure that people comply with it and meet it, but we need to be very objective and really no discretionary type of discussions and analysis is going to come into play. And then the third thing was the County Court Tilsdale Drive is an acceptable location. So again, working on revisions, have those drafted. We're going to be talking with folks about those. And then we will submit the revised language to the selectmen and make sure it's very clear. And that will be what will be presented in the executive summary and on file with the town clerk. So as we move forward to special town meeting, that will all be available.
Can I, Melissa, would you mind if I just mention one thing about that, the state pre-review?
No, go ahead, please.
Thank you. I just want to mention that when we were drafting the bylaw in consultation with our technical consultant, Jeff at Horsley Witten, and also with Nina, our legal counsel, we were looking at a lot of different bylaws around the Commonwealth and really trying to crosswalk them with the issues that we were hearing about in Dover and trying to come up with a bylaw that we knew was going to pass muster, but also we, to be honest, tried to push a little bit on protections for Dover. And some of them, the ones Melissa has mentioned here in her review, they push back on us. And we weren't totally shocked that that happened, but we were really trying to use the process as a mechanism for seeing how far we could go with protections that really spoke to the interests and desires of the residents of Dover. And I just want to mention that in that process, just for folks who are listening here who might be learning about this process as we go, those 3 information sessions and the survey that we fielded and our outreach with, for example, the Council on Aging and the multiple mechanisms that we use to try to engage residents of Dover and sincerely hear their questions, their concerns, their, comments. We really listened and tried to bake those into the bylaw that we wrote in consultation with Horsley Witten and Nina and all of us on the planning board. But the pre-review process helps to sort of get us to where we feel really comfortable moving forward. But there's been a lot of effort to incorporate the feedback of the residents of Dover.
Thank you,
Melissa,
Jody.
Yes. I just draw attention to the question that Jim Rapetti, our town moderator, has asked that you might address. But also I had another question about the process of actually undertaking a multifamily development in that overlay district. Am I right in my understanding that the only way that such a development could take place would be if existing owners of those parcels were prepared to sell those parcels to a developer who would then proceed with a development under this zoning law?
That's correct, Member Hudson. There would need to be I don't want to say all of the units would need to be sold, but enough that are together and clustered that somebody would then purchase them and then pursue exercising the bylaw. There's nothing that says because this particular location, there's nothing that prohibits somebody from using a portion of it And to the flip, you don't have to develop the entire site.
And you know, one of the things that came up at the Warren Committee yesterday, and I think this was a good question, you know, we all know that Marblehead, their MBTA communities passed that town meeting, but then failed at the ballot. And that is a unique circumstance in Marblehead where they have to actually vote on bylaws. So in Dover, we just need a majority vote at town meeting. So there is no ballot voting.
Correct. I'm just gonna, I don't see, Mr. Repetti's, comment. Let me just, is that in the chat
It's
or?
in
It's in the
Q&A.
Q&A, yes.
Let me see, Q&A. Okay, let me get there. You probably already plan to discuss what site plan approval means, but just in case, it may be helpful to describe what sorts of safeguards, if any, are provided to the town. Okay, yeah, I can definitely answer that. So site plan approval, is a local, not a local mechanism. It's a mechanism in which the planning board would look at the bylaws and look at the plans and look at what somebody wants to do and make sure that everything that they want to do is compliant with the zoning bylaw. So it's a thorough process. The difference between that and a special permit is the special permit is more, the planning board has the discretion to determine whether or not they think a particular use is appropriate at a particular location. So in this setting, the planning board has done a tremendous amount of work determining the location where they feel is suitable for this particular overlay. And the site plan review process would be making sure that the building locations, the landscaping, the parking, the heights, the density, all of the infrastructure passes muster and complies locally. Does that address your question, Mr. Repetti?
I'm not sure he's a member of the webinar and he has to be admitted to be able to answer.
Oh, okay.
Oh, here he comes.
Okay, thank you.
Magically admitted.
Hey, Jim.
Appreciate the answer, Melissa. Yeah, I think that question is likely to come up at town meeting in terms of, you know, exactly what sort of safeguards would be provided to the town. And I think the other issue that's going to come up is you mentioned the Plymouth Superior Court decision that ruled against the 9 communities. I think that it would be very helpful to have Nina prepared to opine about what the likelihood of success would be for the town of Dover if the town were to challenge this. And, you know, my reading of the tea leaves is that there's almost 0 chance, but I think that she has to be prepared to say that. Otherwise, this town meeting could get sidetracked on some side issues involving litigation. So, you know, I would like to just be able to nip that right in the bud. I myself have no doubt the SJC has ruled against the challenges. We have the Plymouth Superior Court decision. It's hard to believe that a court's going to rule otherwise, but she's going to have to be in a position to address that in order for us to have an orderly discussion of all the issues. So thank you.
Jim,
That's
thank you for
something-
that. Melissa,
Yeah.
Jim is our town moderator.
Nice to meet you, Jim.
Yeah, nice to meet you too, Melissa.
I think that's something I have some emails out to Nina and hopefully going to be discussing with her next week. And I think that's good if there's an intro piece from her. You know, I think it's fair that everybody that's going to be voting has the same understanding and knowledge that the planning board and members, folks like yourself, Mr. Repetti, have. because I don't know if people are hang up to date on MBTA litigation like all of us.
Yeah. And the other thing that I think might be helpful too, because this could come up, some people may say, well, let's roll the dice. It's worth a shot. I think it would be very helpful if she could also discuss what the likely cost would be for the town to litigate this. Because I think that's also a very important consideration in conjunction with the potential loss of the grants that you referred to earlier.
Right.
Yes.
And Jim, in one of the information sessions in particular, those two questions came up. And a resident of Dover, for us, we can only base our estimates on grants we're gonna lose based upon past history.
Yep.
And some years we only have 200,000 in grants, and some years we have 2 million. So we were averaging it out, saying, on average, we are at risk to lose about 1 million. And I think when I backed into the calculation as to what would it cost the median homeowner if we had to fund that, it was $360 a year. So your tax, but because to Melissa's point, these are projects that we have to do. So the taxpayer would have to be paying for them. And the biggest project is the Center Street Bridge, which is millions. It's like 15 million in total. So,
Yeah.
this is real money that and we're not trying to be alarmists. We just believe that the town needs to understand what we're at risk for losing.
Yeah, I think that's very helpful, Robin, and I think that, I know you all agree, transparency is always the best policy. So I would just, be prepared to discuss what the average is and also be prepared to discuss the bridge and any other projects that might be down the pike that might skew the averages.
Right.
I think, again, our job is to just lay it all out there so people can make an intelligent decision. So,
Right. But at the one meeting, it did get somewhat contentious because I was very careful about saying we cannot tell you exactly what our grants are going to be on a year by year basis. So we need to look at on average what has happened.
yeah.
And I can't tell you with certainty that in 2026 if we say no, we're going to lose 1 million in grants because I don't know what we applied for, but I do know that over the years our staff has really done a phenomenal job applying for grants where they're available to reduce the tax burden for the residents of Dover.
Yeah,
Robin, that
I
was
think
a point that I was going to bring up is the trend, thanks to Kevin at DPW, Chief Wright, Chief Fincy. They're
Mike and
doing a
Chris,
great job. Chris, I
right,
could say, and others is what I was going to say. So
right,
Chris is certainly another of extraordinary caliber. Uh, the point is that our grant applications and granted grants have been trending upwards as we apply more and more
right.
whether it's a culvert or a repair work. We also know that Milton did fight it, and they have spent close to $1 million on legal fees, and they're right back where they started, and they still must comply. So when you take $1 million a year and take that out 5 or 10 years, that will also the 15 million for the bridge, and then $1 million of legal fees. That's what's at risk. And what I keep asking people who want to fight is why? What are you trying to gain? What do you think we're going to lose? This is not a 40B. This is just the right to build in an overlay district.
And if you don't like it, work with the legislator.
yeah,
Have
Yep.
them have
yeah.
appeal
Our
to
view,
them to try and make the changes that are necessary for a smaller town like Dover.
Right, but that $360 is $360 every year,
Right.
which is
It's
trending
compounding, right,
higher,
right.
plus the legal fees. And let's face it, I mean, Dover kind of has a little target on our back with the state legislature because we have fought them on a lot of things in the past. And this is just there's nothing to gain by fighting. I've
Right.
looked at that. There's nothing to gain, but there is a whole lot to lose.
Yeah,
Right, and that's why I think it's really important that the citizens of Dover hear from us, the Board of Selectmen, that we have looked at the pros and cons of making the recommendation to the town to accept this law and to vote yes to be compliant.
yeah,
And we are all in favor of this, and I think it's important that the residents of Dover know that this is not the planning board going off adopting some bylaw. This is a law, just like the ADU law that we had to amend to concur with what the Commonwealth changed the law to be. It's the same thing, and you can't town meeting, we just can't let town meeting confuse this with 40Bs, confuse this with Dover's lack of diversified housing stock. What we need to focus on at town meeting is the MBTA Communities Act, which is a zoning law. And the town needs to decide whether to vote yes or no based upon the information that the leadership, is going to provide them with, which is just the facts as we've learned them. We're fortunate we're a late adopter because of our size. So we can learn a lot from other cities and towns that went through this before us.
And what we've learned is that there's absolutely no point in fighting this.
Right, right.
Yeah, obviously I can't take a position on this as a moderator, but I think that it's just very important that you be prepared for this discussion in terms of having the evidence or the data points available. In terms of average funding that grants that we receive, in terms of grants that might be in the pipeline, in terms of the cost of litigation. And then also in terms, looking to Nina, the probability of success if this is litigated. I can guarantee you that those questions are all going to come up at town meeting based on past experience. And I think that it's really important that you all be ready to answer. I also just want to say thank you very much for all the work you've done on this. This has been an amazing challenge to get all this data marshaled. To be moving forward. You have a lot of moving pieces. So on behalf of all the citizens, let me say thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Jim. Poor Melissa, you tried to get a word in edgewise and not with this group.
I really appreciate the dialogue. It's helpful to me. I'm kind of coming in 3/4 of the way. So I'm listening and absorbing and taking very good notes. One of the things I want to mention before we move on the grant piece is the other thing that I think is important is the state and various state organizations and groups based on federal earmarks that we get locally and state priorities. Grants change all the time. They create new programs. So there could be grants that don't even exist today that we realize we need in 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the road. So grants these are the only grants it's going to be forever. And this is the pool. Grants constantly change, new programs are created, new initiatives are created, especially when it comes to planning and zoning, infrastructure, green technologies. That stuff is constantly climate, sustainability. All these things are changing and evolving, and priorities change at the federal and state level. So I think it's also important to note that, there could be things that come up in the future. There could be other types of mandates related to sustainability primarily, and things that we might need to seek in the future that aren't even on our radar today. So this is not a today issue. This is we did this in the past for grants. This is what we're looking at today. And there could be things in the future that we might need to seize an opportunity to pursue based on different things that come up. I mean, 5 years ago, there was no MBTA communities. So what's going to be going on in 5 years? And are we going to be in a position where we need grants to comply and or meet other types of things that are placed upon the community? Moving along, in July, I want to thank Chris. He has moved the MBTA web page to the front under the town news section. So there's no way everybody can find it. I can find it, so everybody can find it. And it's nice and accessible from the front there. So thank you to Chris for moving that for us. As I noted earlier, the planning board filed these amendments on July 15th with the selectmen. The next thing here on the slides is the meeting that we're having tonight and this discussion, which I think is going to be very helpful. Hopefully folks are tuning in or can watch at a later date. And then one of the actions that's going to take place next week is part of Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 48, Section 5, which is the section I had provided a memo to the selectmen and the town administrators that sort of outlines that process and the things that would apply to Dover as part of the zoning amendment process. And one of those things is that the selectmen must transmit that ordinance, bylaw, even though we gave it to them, back to the planning board so that we can get even deeper into our review process. Are there any questions on those last few comments? Or
No.
procedural?
So I guess what you need, this was an excellent presentation, and I really appreciate the conversation. I think that made it even better. And Jim, really appreciate your questions as well. So I think where we are right now is you would like us to move to transmit the proposed bylaw back to you, right?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
so do you want me to do that now? And then it's always a good idea to remind everybody of the key dates that we have ahead of us. And I also have a little crisis going on, so I may have to run off. So let me make this motion now. So I move to transmit the proposed bylaw and zoning map amendment submitted by the planning board on July 15th to the planning board. Wow, that's confusing. So it was submitted by the planning board and we're sending it back to them. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All right, all in favor? Aye, Robin Hunter.
Hi, Dave Haviland.
All
Hi,
right.
Cam Hudson.
This
And
is the best. They gave us work and we just give it back.
Right. It's and you guys, it's I would like the town of Dover to really try and appreciate the hard work that has gone into this. So, we as a board really appreciate everything you've done. Those information sessions were fantastic. We still have work. I think, Jim, we have talked to Nina. So the more engagement we have with the community, the more we'll know what the concerns are. And I am confident that we'll have answers to all questions when we get to town meeting.
Well, Robin, thank you for that support, and we really do appreciate it. And thank you for taking the vote in case you have to scoot out. There's also a tremendous amount of work to do between now and September 29th. Again, very prescribed by law. And one of the goals of tonight, in addition to this great discussion, is to make sure that by the time we've all gone through this tonight, that the who, what, where, and how of all the things that need to be done in the next 8 weeks are clear to everybody. And that's what slide number 8 starts to discuss. So Melissa, if you would start discussing.
Yes.
What we have
Thank
to
you,
do
Carol.
next.
So,
Yep.
so before Melissa starts, I see Jim Rapetti has his hand raised. I don't know if he
Again?
has another question or if he just didn't take it down.
I do. Yeah, sorry to interrupt again. While we're on the slide that's showing the timeline, I think it would be helpful if we could also schedule a moderators meeting Because if there is a group that wishes to present in opposition to this motion, I would like them to come to the meeting so that we could discuss the guidelines for how they should proceed, PowerPoints, things of that sort. I think it would be very helpful. Frankly, from what I'm hearing, I'm not expecting that there is going to be organized opposition, but I think that it's always best to be prepared. So it might be a very short moderators meeting, but just in case.
You want it 2 weeks before the special town meeting, Jim?
Whatever works best for you all, Dave, and for the planning board. You know, I'm very flexible. As long as it's in the evening after work, I can really come anytime. So,
Well, what's your target? Would you like a week or 2 weeks?
I think that frankly, given how September is a little bit truncated, people coming back from vacation, maybe if we make it a week before, unless the planning board or others feel that 2 weeks would be better. Again, I'm very flexible.
So yeah, the truncation of September is an issue. However, should we be aware of substantive issues that folks have, given the complexity of the bylaw and the constraints that we have from the state, our ability to react to concerns is going to be pressed if we don't have enough time. So, Jody, I see your hand as
Yeah.
well.
Jim, thank you for raising that. And I had actually been thinking that when you were raising some of your suggestions just a few minutes ago, and they have to do for me with, not understanding process questions like Nina's ability to speak at town meeting. I recall at the last one, we had to take a vote when somebody who was not a resident of Dover wanted to present. I think that was for the turf field. And I was just wondering if that applies to Nina or
No.
not.
No,
Okay,
no,
great.
no,
Good question,
it's-
Jody.
yeah,
Thank you.
it doesn't apply to town employees or to town agents such as our attorney.
Okay, so actually Melissa could also speak if we wanted
That's
her
right.
to.
That's right. Melissa
Okay.
can also speak as a town employee.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. And does that mean that somebody like Melissa, for example, just to lead into that a little more, if we have a question, say I'm presenting and somebody raises a question and I don't know the answer, could I ask Melissa to comment? Those are the kinds of questions I'd love to hear at a moderator's meeting.
Yeah, and actually, Jody, I told Carol I did a poor job at the last town meeting because in her dialogue with a town resident, he started to ask her directly questions, and I failed to intercede. The question should always be directed to me, and
Okay,
then
got
I will be asking who the appropriate person is to answer those questions. So again, Carol, I apologize for having dropped the ball there.
Quarter, just don't do it again. No. Jim,
Thank
we you know how much we appreciate you as town moderator. So I would suggest that maybe towards like Thursday the 18th or Wednesday the 17th, perhaps the Selectmen's office and Mona can send out a poll to see what day that week might work.
Okay.
That would give us the entire week of the 22nd.
Right.
In case we need to do some research or talk to the state.
Mhm.
Because it will be important for us to know if there are substantive changes, whether that's a killer from a state standpoint.
Right.
So
Okay.
why don't we wait and get some suggestions for that week and see if it works out for everybody.
Okay. Yeah, either night would be fine for me. I was just looking at my calendar.
Yeah.
So that's fine.
Yeah, no, thank you for that, Jim.
You're welcome.
Okay, Melissa.
Yes, I'm back. So August, and I have already begun this, is going to be majorly focused, or at least the first week or so, on drafting the preparation of the executive summary. So I have a draft. I was able today to meet with the town clerk. I want to thank her publicly for her time. We have the actual physical example here for the pamphlet style that we used for the 46 Springdale Ave. So
I remember that blue paper. Carol and I worked on that together.
If I
Yeah.
remember correctly, Robin, we ruined an entire summer doing that.
Yes, we did. So
I
if you
see,
find any typos, we don't want to know.
I see both of your names here, so, um,
We've been
so,
around a long
yeah,
time.
that's good, that's good. So I've got the template already in my thing and how we're gonna have 11 by 17 split page, et cetera, et cetera. I've got a call into the print shop. That information was shared with me. I understand the postage and all of that. So I'll have all of that sort of ironed out with lead times, cost, et cetera, by the middle of next week. So that is happening and that's real time.
What
It might
color
also
is
be
it going to
useful to
be?
note that this is a substitute for the so-called blue
Yes.
book.
Yep.
We're
Correct.
just
Correct.
writing an executive
Um,
summary for that.
Also important to add, which because I completed the presentation before I had an opportunity to meet with town administrator this afternoon. They're going to be mailing a separate warrant. So the warrant will go out within the timeframes prescribed under the general laws. There is no time frame for the executive summary. We're targeting September 12th. That's our plan. So that will be a separate document. That will be mailed out to all of the households.
And Mike and Chris, that was one of the questions the Warren Committee had is what are they at the special town meeting required to make a recommendation, and would their recommendation be in this executive summary or okay.
That's the intent. If
Yep.
you look at, that's what we did on the
Right.
46 Springdale.
Right.
We have a statement
Yep.
that looks identical to what they probably would have put in the blue book.
Okay.
And
So
I've
we
talked to
should
Woody about
coordinate
that.
with them as
Yeah,
well.
I've talked to Woody about that.
Okay.
And I would also like to, and I see that Barry Goldman's on as an attendee.
Right.
Because so many of the grants are capital budget type items,
Right.
it would certainly be nice to be able to get a statement for the executive summary from the capital budget committee as well.
That's a good idea.
Yep.
Along those lines, we should take a formal vote
Right.
in support and then come up with our own blurb to put in that.
That's
What
an
color book is
excellent
it?
idea.
Oh,
Beige book?
that's the most difficult discussion of the 3 years of work is what color to make the paper.
Yeah, that was, I asked the question, everybody ignored me, so.
Well,
it's
if we're gonna have maps with things highlighted, I was
White.
gonna suggest white. Yes, I want really the maps to be clear, and we will
You're
likely be
so
including
practical, Melissa.
including that. So I did make an executive decision on that this afternoon. Sorry.
Yeah,
So
you
yes,
didn't
and
know how
again,
important this was to us, the color.
I think that, the more support that is in the executive summary just really will highlight the document and will make everybody more informed of people are in support here. This has been a long process. There's been a lot of work that has gone into this. And I think that's really important for people to that have been following it or haven't, or whatever their situation is. We want everybody to see what has been done and the support locally from the various boards and committees. And I'll be working hand in hand with Carol to help facilitate that in any way that I can.
So I would just note that there has been an email and then follow-up discussions that I've had with both Woody and Barry about statements by September 3rd that we can, that sort of meets the publishing schedule.
And then Carol, it may be a good idea because the August 18th meeting, I emphasized at the Warren Committee last night how important it is for boards and committees to attend that meeting because it's imperative that we all understand the facts and not the misinformation about this MBTA Communities Act. So maybe at that, we could also ask the committees that do attend to all take a vote and we could include that in the summary.
Yeah, I had suggested that if committees know that they're going to be able to get a quorum at the August 18th meeting, that they could schedule their meetings for after our meeting is over.
Right.
and take care of it all in the same day, but that'll be up to the committees to
Okay.
work out, yeah.
I mean, you know, again, that's why I want to ingrain this timeline into people's brains because it's only 8 weeks. It's not, before you know it, it's going to be August 18th.
Yep, and September 9th, 29th.
But just to take that to the next level. So on August 18th, boards and committees are going to have a similar presentation to what we're getting tonight. Is that
Yes,
fair?
yes,
Okay.
and very much a Q&A. I mean, the hope is that after 3 years, they've looked at the website, done their own homework, so that we're answering questions.
But
Yep.
that's August 18th. I'm doing
Yes.
this on purpose, so if anyone happens to listen to it afterwards, that they will know the dates. So then we have September 8th, which is a public hearing on this entire matter, where now the general public gets to hear and have a say. Is that good
That's right,
summary?
and that's legally required for any zoning bylaw, and it's something that we do every spring prior to town meeting for the zoning bylaws we're bringing to town meeting.
Right, and so
Yep.
that's September 8th, and then
Yep.
the special town meeting is on September 29th. So those are the 3 dates that I just want to make sure that everybody is aware of. August 18th is boards and committees, September 8th is the public hearing, and then September 29th is a special town meeting.
Right.
Correct.
So
And
we've
then-
had two emails go out by under signatures of Robin, myself, and Jody to the board and committee chairs, one in June and one just last week, reminding them about the August 18th meeting and sort of explaining the process that we're sort of going over tonight. We've have the special town meeting and the September 8th meeting and the August 18th meeting, obviously all on the town calendar as well. And we have a flyer that was on in the August, no, in the July newsletter that will also be in the August and the September newsletter that highlights both the September 8th public hearing and the September 29th special town meeting.
Right. And I just want to make sure that from a statutory standpoint, there is no need for the warrant committee to do an open hearing. Will the planning board's public hearing cover that?
Yeah,
yeah,
I guess we'll have to check. I never viewed the warrant committee open hearing as a statutory requirement.
yeah,
versus sort of
I
a
don't know.
Dover tradition.
Right.
But Melissa, if you would just add that to your list to Nina.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just don't want to
No,
get,
good point.
right,
Yep.
Oh, to go all the way to the finish line and then
right.
miss a
Oh, Jim
technicality would
Repetti,
be
I think
bad.
knows the answer.
Yeah.
Well, make sure I'm not muted. No, I don't. I don't think it's a requirement, but I don't have access to the statute books here. They're in my office, so I'll have to
Okay.
wait. But the thing that I was also wondering about is this going to be a majority vote, Carol, or is it a 2/3 vote, given that it's zoning?
It's majority, Jim. We looked this up last night at the warrant committee.
Okay.
The MBTA law says it's majority.
It's sort of
Okay.
like what the state did with the AHA, the Affordable
Yep.
Housing Act,
Right.
as
Right.
a way to actually get zoning passed.
Yeah.
But
They went to
Melissa, while
majority.
you're talking with Nina, it's worth a double check.
I have a list of about 15 double checks.
Yeah.
I am a double and triple checker, and I will have zero doubts on the floor the night of town meeting. That's how I like to
We
operate.
love that.
Yes.
If I could ask,
Warning.
if I could ask the planning board, and also the Board of Selectmen to include in your communication to citizens about the meeting, that it will be a majority vote requirement, that would be really helpful, so that, nobody can say that we're not being, or that you are not being totally transparent. Because I think the assumption is, usually zoning requirements, zoning bylaws are 2/3, so
Yep.
people may be a little bit surprised by the fact that it's a majority. And I just want to have total transparency in this process.
No, that's a good
That's
point.
great. We'll add it to the executive summary.
Right.
Yeah,
And we
it's
also
already in there.
need a quorum, 175 people.
Right. I keep suggesting to you that we offer wine to everybody who attends.
We are willing to give the school a special liquor license for that.
And of course, there's the parking lot, but
Right.
before and after. But Jim, Robin and Dave and Cam and I and Jody have had discussions, obviously, about and you've heard it tonight about how this is a real existential issue for Dover. And this is an all hands on deck situation that we haven't really faced much in the past. And because the ramifications are so severe if it doesn't get passed. And if you think about all the incredible volunteers that we have in town government, either appointed or elected, and well over 100, I know, and the amount of time and devotion that they give to the town of Dover, I think it's a wonderful message to all of them over the next 8 weeks that even if they're involved in a board or committee that doesn't necessarily get grants, that as a volunteer government official in Dover, this is a time to step forward and attend a second town meeting in 2025.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very good point, Carol. Thank you.
Maybe we should get little stickers that say, I attend a town meeting.
Maybe we promote the handing out of some Dover swag.
We know from our 13-year-old consultant that ducks
Rubber
are big.
duckies. And just think about all those folks in Dover that own Jeeps. They really want those ducks.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe
Sorry,
we could get a custom Dover duck.
There you go. Well, the police department has the Dover police ducks. Anyway, Melissa, please continue.
We digress.
Yeah, so I want to thank Dave because he kind of went through some of these things here that are on the slide. But in August, we're going to be targeting the county court people and having a meeting with those folks and residents, whether it's Zoom, whether we visit them. That's something that's on my list of things to do as well. We talked about the all board meeting, and again, as noted by Carol, it's really important to get folks here, and it's really important, bring a friend, bring a neighbor, and really spread the word about this meeting and for folks to come. This is really going to be an opportunity for them to get a lot of facts that evening. And to the point of whether that committee gets grants or not, not the town losing on grants affects everybody because then the money has to be moved around in different ways. So whether you get grants or not, whether you never applied for one, everybody is going to feel the hit if and when we are not getting any type of grant funds. So we're all pulling from the same pool. We're all pulling from the general fund. And if we have to stop pulling from that for other things that we previously relied on grants for and or matches, sometimes we're going for federal money and we need a state match. So there's this variety of things. It's not just one, not just going to be, oh, DPW is going to, no, everybody is going to feel the impact of losing millions of dollars and potentially having to spend those as well on the litigation side.
Right.
August and September, we've already kind of started this, and I want to thank Chris for being a communications go-to guy. He is going to be taking bits and pieces from the executive summary, working with our communications team, and really, again, messaging, getting the word out, every possible manner in which we can do that to folks. The newsletter will be great as well, working on that and getting that over to him on Monday. Thank you, Carol, for your feedback on my draft. And then the big one, the public hearing on September 8th. I think the public hearing will be also important to attend. That's going to be kind of more orientated to talking about the specific overlay and the zoning. We will cover some basics, but I think the town has already done a really good job with the 3 information sessions about, what is this and why. But we will highlight that as well for folks, just so that they can get up to speed if needed. Yes.
I'm sorry, Melissa, I didn't mean to interrupt. Before we go on to the next one, we had thought back in the spring, because there has been a request from various town residents to have an in-person public hearing. And we were thinking if the community center was up and running, that we could actually do a hybrid meeting. Is it safe to assume that that will not be the case and we'll have to just do a regular Zoom meeting?
The timing would be so close, Carol, that I wouldn't want to jeopardize.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
I don't know if all that the gear is going to be up and running
I think
to do the hybrid meeting.
Because you have to advertise, I would be nervous we would
Okay.
mess it up. If it was a last minute call, we could do it, I think, but
No, we have to
I
advertise
think-
this. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Just checking.
And then just after that, we're going to be mailing out the executive summary. And then we have Dover Days. I apologize, I wrote Dover Day.
It is
really
Dover
excited.
Day.
Dover Day or
Well,
Dover Days?
It is only a day, but we seem to refer to it as Dover
Dover
Days.
Days, right.
Well, I'll be there one day, September 13th. My understanding is the selectmen have a booth. And if you don't mind, you're going to have a few friends there that day. And we'll be talking about potentially, a larger map, some handouts, extra copies of the executive summary, and just be there for general questions, pointing things out. We'll have some copies of the bylaw. And maybe we also talked about having a more condensed sort of just single page, maybe double-sided handout with just some high level points, just really emphasizing some of the things that we talked about here this evening and have been discussed in the community over the last several months. And then the grand finale, September 29th, special town meeting. Looking forward to that. I haven't been on the town meeting floor for about 15 years. So excited to be back in that type of setting. And then after that comes all the fun stuff with submitting to the AG, and then completing the compliance application that we're going to be submitting to EOHLC. I apologize. I just remembered something that I had left out of the slides. Or maybe it was in one of the early ones. But we are also going to submit the draft bylaw and map to the Attorney General. They've reached out to Nina and they've offered to take a look at that. So I want to make sure that they see the one with the proposed revisions we have. So they see the comments from EOHLC, they see what we had, where we're going, and our mapping as well. So we're going to be doing that next week.
That's great.
So getting as much feedback as possible is the goal, talking to as many people as possible, and reinforcing this messaging to hopefully have a successful evening, both at the planning board and at town meeting. And that concludes the presentation. I don't know if there's any questions. I'd be happy to take those. Hopefully I can
like
answer
there's
them.
one, our favorite question answer and asker has his hand up again.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I apologize. But it occurred to me that if you don't mind, when you send out the blue book, or I guess it's going to be the white book now, that if you could include the moderators and assistant moderators discussion of town meeting procedure, because I feel that that's important to set the tone for the meeting. And as you know, I spend a few minutes at the beginning of a meeting to also try to set the tone for an appropriate, intelligent discussion of the issues. But I think it would be helpful if people, when they get the white book, also if that includes the process or the sort of the explanation of what's involved with town meeting that we include in the blue book normally. Thank you.
Yeah, Melissa, it's in the front of our blue book, so we can get you one and show you where it is, and it's verbatim right out of there.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. This was a really good conversation and great presentation. And I look forward to the presentation on August 18th. And I think in that presentation, it would behoove us to remind people about right up front what this is, what the requirement is, and what has been done, because I think there's still a little bit of misinformation out there.
Well, this is unlike anything that we've had to deal with before. The state has not made it easy,
No.
by having rules and regs that apply equally to to the city of Boston, to the town of Dover.
Right.
And there's to your point before, a tremendous amount of nuance to all this. So it becomes very confusing.
Yeah, there's a lot of
Yeah.
gray.
But as we're wrapping up, I know I speak for all of us, but please thank Jody. I know she had to drop off.
Yep.
But Carol and Jody, as the people who have run point on this for the Board of Selectmen in the town of Dover, thank you very much.
Well, thank you very
Indeed.
much. This is very much a team effort, and Mike has been involved, Chris has been involved, other planning board members have been involved. You guys have been an incredible support from day one. So, assuming we get to yes, I think we can all just pat ourselves on the back and say what a team effort, and how
Right.
good this is for Dover.
Right. And thank you to Melissa. In 10 days, she's made some major contributions.
Thank you, everyone.
Can't wait for day 11, Melissa.
Mañana.
Well, thank you all. All right, so now we will move to item 1.2 of our agenda. And Mike, I'm going to turn this over to you. This is a discussion and vote regarding the manager, officers, and directors of the American Legion Post 209.
Great. Thanks, Ron. So for every alcohol license in the Commonwealth, you're required to have a manager of record as well as a list of officers and directors. And the commander of the American Legion, who was the manager, has moved. So the Legion has voted to appoint their vice commander, James Johnson, as the new commander, and he will become the club manager. So they put forth an application to do that, and that also includes, as a result of his promotion, I guess, also a change of officers, directors for the post as well. So in your packet is a very extensive application they have to submit.
Certainly is.
Yeah, and that's not everything. Some of the stuff is, we don't include like the Corey forms and birth certificates and all sorts of things. So we would ask for your approval tonight. If you are available next week, there's a signature page for you to sign, and then Mona will facilitate getting this to the state ABCC, who will then process it, and they give the final ultimate approval at that level.
Okay. So I don't have any questions. Cam or Dave, do you have any?
No.
Okay, it's really administrative, so I will make a motion as the local licensing authority. I move to approve the application to transfer the American Legion Post 209 club manager position from Richard Fitzpatrick to James Johnson, and to approve the change of officers and directors.
Second.
All in favor? Aye, Robin Hunter.
Aye, Dave Haviland.
Aye, Cam Hudson.
All right, and the next item, 1.3, and this I'm going to turn over to Chris, but this is for us to vote and declare our old telephone system as surplus items.
Yes. Yeah. So you may recall a few months ago, we upgraded our phone system town-wide. Through the management and closing out of our last agreement with our last company, we realized that in the first part of the agreement, we actually purchased the phones outright. So we are in possession of 70 handsets, a few conference phones, and 3 wireless handsets that we no longer have use for because our new agreement provided all new hardware in which we're renting. So we'd like to seek the board to approve these items as surplus, and we do intend to auction them off on a municipal auction website called Municibid, and they'll be going to the highest bidder. But we wanted to, we inventoried them and prepping them for the auction, and we want them to go away. So that's the reason why they're surplus.
So I will tell you from personal experience, there is a big market for these phones.
Oh,
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
I was curious to see what we would get. I was looking at trying to find some comparisons out there. There is similar amount of phones from a township in New Jersey, and I think they were offering 50 phones. I don't think they're comparable to the units we have, but the highest bidder was at like $4,000. So,
Right.
hopefully there is some value there, and if we can recoup some of our original cost, that'll be great.
Right. So I'm going to move to deem the town-owned TPX telephone handsets as surplus items.
Second.
All in favor? Aye, Robin Hunter.
Aye, Dave Haviland.
Aye, Cam Hudson.
Excellent. Let us know how much you get, Chris.
Will do.
And I'm just curious. So we have selectmen updates. So quickly, I attended the Warren Committee last night. The focus of that was also the MBTA Communities Act and then some of their working groups that they're putting together. I think the most important thing for us as a town is really to focus on getting correct, concise information out to citizens regarding the MBTA Communities Act and to really make sure that they understand how important it is to come to town meeting. Educated.
True. I can't even say this without chuckling, but is that all? So the only update I have is on the for the fire chief search. The search committee has been meeting, and we went through an assessment process, and we boiled down roughly 15 candidates to 4, which we are moving forward to the Fire Board of Engineers for them to take over and bring it home from here.
Wow, that's great.
So
that's a robust group. That's fantastic.
it's great. Just we do know that at least 2, probably 3 of the candidates are applying to other positions. So this one is, for lack of a better word, on a fast track. Or we're all cognizant of that, and we want to move quickly because we don't want to get to our number 1 person, if you will, to have them accept the job 2 days earlier.
Right. No, good. Cam, do you have any?
I'm afraid I'm bereft of updates.
Well, we had a meeting just recently, so
Right.
so no need to have updates. All right, we'll turn it over to Mike and see if he has any updates.
Just a couple. So Dave mentioned the fire chief search. Just to highlight, Carol had mentioned about the housing study RFP. So we did get 3 very strong responses. Hopeful that the work group will, the task force will look at them next week. And then we hope to be before your first meeting in August, to actually award a contract to the selected consultant to start that process. So that's exciting. As you may recall, this was our second attempt at this. And so we're glad this appears to be a more successful effort. So that's great. And then lastly, there's many benefits to us moving to our trial 4-day work week, staying late on Tuesday, one of which is the summer concert series by the library and the park and rec are on Tuesday night. So we get to listen to music a little bit at the end of our time here. It's really, I don't know if you've been, but it is awesome. There's a lot of people dancing, kids having fun. One week there was a dog truck. Last week there was a Kona ice truck. It just is a
Okay, why
blast.
did nobody tell me there was a hot dog truck? I love hot dogs.
So there is one, I just wanted to advertise there's one more concert coming up next Tuesday, the 29th. It's Eddie Shoes is the group. The music is starts at 7 o'clock.
And
People
what's
usually
the
get here.
truck? What's the food?
That, I know it's funny, I'm looking, I don't see it. I'll have to find out and I'll let you know. So yeah, no, just wanted to highlight that. I really appreciate the library and Parks and Rec working on that. It's a really great community event. So
That's great.
and
And
that's all I
Mike,
have.
just on the RFPs, would it be possible to get them out so we could send them out?
So you have them right now in your email. Just earlier, you
Okay.
should have them.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Great. Thanks. All right. And you know,
Mike,
it just occurred to me last night that maybe we should ask Warrant if they want to have a liaison to the committee.
Okay.
There was a lot of, I think it would be helpful to them.
That's great.
Yeah, so I will ask Woody.
I had a couple of questions, Mike, and I'm not sure whether they're appropriately addressed to you, but I was just wondering what the status of the sidewalk working group was.
Yeah, so
working group.
that has not kicked off yet.
Okay.
Off the top of my head, I don't remember who the liaison was.
Cam.
I
Oh, it was
am,
Cam.
yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
That's why I was asking.
So we'll work with you then. So we'll work with you to kick that off. I think our impression, and if I apologize if I'm wrong, was that we would do that starting in September once people are back from the summer.
Sounds
so
good.
we'll work with you on your schedule and see what works best.
No pressure to rush it. I just wanted to know where we stood for it. So that's good. And the other one is just a complete off the ball question. You have in your list this opioid settlement, and that we've got to have some sort of working group to allocate it. Is that just in hiatus, or are we moving forward with that?
So it has been a little bit in hiatus, but I appreciate it. It's a good push to move it forward, particularly now that we have our public health nurse on board. I think that would be a good opportunity. So we'll circle with that. That, and I appreciate actually this was not on the list of board and committee assignments, but I think that would be an appropriate one. So if you want to think about that, any of the board members who would be interested, and we can make sure we get someone assigned to that.
Cam, you
I'd be
can't
happy
have
to
it all
take
go
that
to
on.
rule drive. I'm just saying, that's just not fair. So,
But I'd be quite happy to take it on
Okay.
if nobody else wants to.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Okay, great.
I'm okay with that.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Kim.
And I have one thing that Cam jogged my memory, and it's for Chris. Chris, at some point, in September, it would be great if you could kind of go to Warrant and just give them an update on the communication project.
Yeah, absolutely. I do have a anecdotal update. So we should be starting interviews for the management analyst position that was recently approved. That's going to be a major support to the communications operation. I've had to put it on the back burner for a couple months as I worked in some of the finance priorities, but we are planning to launch that plan sooner than September.
Excellent.
So it should come out in the next couple weeks. We'll start laying the groundwork for that.
All right, that sounds great. All right, so then with that, I am going to move to adjourn this meeting. I thought this was a really good meeting. My apologies for having to run out. I have guests arriving and sent a car service to pick them up, and the original driver got into an accident.
Oh gosh.
Wow. I hope everyone's all right.
Yeah, so.
Yeah. Well, second, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so all in favor, I, Robin Hunter.
I, Dave Haviland.
I, Cam Hudson.
So hopefully the second driver makes it back to my house safely.
Oh, jeez.